you really wanna know, then come on, let's go. Take a stroll down those
What's happening, everybody? Welcome into the Country Roads webcast, brought to you by Trio 4 Productions. I'm your host, Jordan Cruz, and the time is finally upon us. It's game week, just a few short days away from the first West Virginia football game of the season. I'm excited, and I know the fans are excited. The coaches and players seem very excited as well, and this is one of the most anticipated seasons in quite some time for West Virginia's. They have a lot of lofty expectations coming from a lot of different people. And I, for one, can't wait to see what this team's going to look like come Saturday. That being said, let's get into this preview. For those of you who may not know, the game will be played Saturday, September 1st at 3:30 p.m. West Virginia Mountaineers versus the Tennessee Volunteers. It'll be televised nationally on CBS, and it is what is known as the Belk College Kickoff Game, taking place in Charlotte, North Carolina at the Bank of America Stadium, home of the Carolina Panthers. Surprisingly enough to me, this is actually the first ever meeting between West Virginia and Tennessee. Surprising to me just because of how close they are in proximity as far as geographically is concerned, being in the same region. So I'm real excited to see what this first matchup between the two teams is going to look like. That being said, let's talk about what we can expect to see from this Tennessee team. In 2017, last season, Tennessee went 4-8 and 0-8 in the SEC Conference. They do return 13 starters. They brought in Jeremy Pruitt from Alabama. He was the Alabama defensive coordinator last season to replace Butch Jones, who had been there for a few years. Now, this will be Jeremy Pruitt's first head coaching job at any level, but he has been a standout defensive coach for a long time, going all the way back to his high school coaching days where he specialized in coaching defensive backs. If you've ever seen the show Two-A-Days, focused on Hoover High School, took place in the early 2000s. I believe it was televised on MTV. He served as the defensive backs coach there before going on being defensive backs coach at Alabama, and then defensive coordinator at Florida State, defensive coordinator at Georgia, and like I said, most recently at Alabama, and he's had success in about all of those stops and led great defenses. He brought in an entirely new coaching staff, including Tyson Helton to be the offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach, coming over from University of Southern California. And as far as defense, he's going with co-defensive coordinators and Kevin Scherer and Chris Rumpf. With it being a whole new coaching staff, there are a lot of unknowns that surround this Tennessee team, but you can expect to see a different look for this Tennessee team as far as scheme-wise. Defensively, they're switching from a 4-3 to a 3-4 defense. As well as offensively, Butch Jones employed the spread, ran a lot of read option, and now they're going to be employing more of a pro-style attack on offense as well. So, change up in scheme on both sides of the ball there, really. The game week depth chart released by Tennessee earlier this week seemingly aimed to prolong some of the unknowns and the mysteries surrounding this team, as there were multiple positions where co-starters were listed with the words "or" in between their names. And that was on at least 10 different positions across the depth chart, including quarterback, running back, and cornerback. That projected too deep for the Volunteers also featured 9 freshmen, including 4 as possible starters. I mentioned multiple positions across the depth chart had co-starters listed, and one of those was at quarterback, where they have an ongoing quarterback battle between Jarrett Guarantano and Stanford graduate transfer Keller Christ. Keller Christ is a much bigger body of the two, whereas Jarrett Guarantano has a much stronger arm and moves around better, is a lot more mobile. I think you'll see Jarrett Guarantano take the first snap for Tennessee, but I wouldn't be surprised to see both of these guys end up playing in the game. But I think Guarantano will end up as the starter for the first series. As far as the guys they will be looking to throw the ball to, they do have a couple of highly talented wideouts who have shown the ability in the past in Marquez Callaway and Juwan Jennings. They also brought in a highly coveted JUCO tight end in Dominic Wood Anderson, who will probably factor into the pass game as well. They will use their other tight end fullbacks, Eli Wolf and Austin Pope, in more blocking and H-back type roles, and I expect Dominic Wood Anderson to be involved in the passing game a lot more than those other guys, and he could factor in there. At halfback, I mentioned they're having to replace John Kelly, And much like West Virginia, it appears that that's going to be by committee for them, as they had 3 guys listed as co-starters on the depth chart. And those 3 guys were Ty Chandler, Tim Jordan, and Michigan State grad transfer Madre London. So expect to see any 3 of those on the field at any given time, and they will all probably get some carries come game time. Last season for Tennessee, the unit that struggled the most for them offensively was the offensive line by far, and that's a lot of the reason that they did not have much success on offense. Was their offensive line was very bad. And they have tried to rebuild that, centered around the one star that they did have last season, and that was freshman All-American Trey Smith. And now in his sophomore year, he has moved from guard, and he's going to be playing left tackle, trying to get a little bit better pass protection for them. How exactly this offensive line will end up looking, though, remains a mystery, because outside of Trey Smith at left tackle and Alabama grad transfer Brandon Kennedy at center, though who's going to start at the other remaining offensive line positions remains a mystery, as they all had co-starters, including 3 possible starters at right tackle and a possible freshman starting at right guard. So expect this Tennessee offensive line to be improved, especially considering there's really nowhere else to go for the unit but up after the performance they had last season and how poorly they performed. But it still remains a mystery with a lot of these positions unsettled, but I think the rebuilt offensive line should be improved for Tennessee this season. Switching over to the defensive side, where Tennessee does return 7 starters, but suffered some key losses, especially at cornerback, where they lost a guy like Rashawn Golden, as well as their other 2 top corners. But on the defensive line, they appear experienced, with 3 seniors starting at those 3 positions. We mentioned they're switching to the 3-4, and they'll be employing 2 defensive ends and a nose tackle now. Kyle Phillips and Alexis Johnson are going to be the D ends, and Shy Tuttle will be running that nose tackle spot. And Shy Tuttle at nose tackle will be backed up by a guy a lot of people may know if they watched the most recent season of Last Chance U, and that's Emmett Gooden. At linebacker, Jonathan Kongbo, Darrell Taylor, and Daniel Batuli will start at 3 of the 4 linebacker positions, while Darren Kirkland and Cortez Sapp will be battling out for that 4th linebacker spot. Look for Cortez Sapp to get to start at that 4th linebacker spot, however, though, due to the fact that Kirkland missed a lot of fall camp recovering from injury, so I expect Sapp to get the first snaps there. It's unclear how much Kirkland's going to end up playing. As far as the defensive backfield goes, I mentioned it's going to rebuild specifically at corner, where they lost their top 3 guys, and it looks as if they'll start at least 1 true freshman there, as 2 true freshmen, Alante Taylor and Bryce Thompson, are battling out for the starting corner position, while Balin Buchanan will be holding down the other cornerback spot for them. The safeties do appear set, however, and may be one of the more stronger units on the Tennessee defense, as they employ senior Micah Abernathy at one spot, as well as arguably their most talented defensive player in junior Nigel Warrior at the other safety spot. So despite many questions and many unknowns and many fresh faces on the coaching staff, as well as the players you're going to see, you can see that Tennessee has a lot of talent on the roster. Despite not being able to win a lot, Butch Jones did stack up some good recruiting classes on top of each other, and Jeremy Pruitt appears that he will continue that. So now the issue is just going to be taking these talented players and translating it to wins, which they've struggled to do in the past. And we'll just see what happens with the talented players that Tennessee has, because the players are there. It's just a matter of getting the players to perform and translating it to success on the field. As far as the Mountaineers game week depth chart, there weren't too many significant changes there, but there were some small changes and maybe some surprises depending on what you were expecting to see. West Virginia at running back also has not decided on a starter. As I mentioned, it's probably going to be by committee as well. We reported here previously that Leddie Brown is the favorite, and it's still looking as if he's in the mix there, because on the depth chart it reflects that all 4 guys listed as co-starters with or in between the names of Kennedy McCoy, Martell Pettaway, Alex Enfield, and of course Leddie Brown. At wide receiver, TJ Simmons had been listed as the starter all off season, but Marcus Sims had a great camp, everyone is saying, the best camp of any of the receivers, and Marcus Sims has taken over that number 1 spot on the outside. So you'll have Sills and Sims on the outside with Gary Jennings on the inside, and Simmons backing up both Sims and Sills on the 2 outside spots. Inside, surprisingly enough, of course Gary Jennings is your starter there, but William Crest was listed as the second receiver there at inside, where he passed up Drew Bowen and Tevin Bush apparently, so that's good to see from William Crest. On the offensive line for the Mountaineers, we mentioned previously position battles at center and right guard. Both remain undecided. with Matt Jones and Jacob Buccigrossi still battling it out at center, and Joe Brown and Isaiah Hardy still battling it out at right guard. At the two tackle spots, you still have Kajust and McKivitz, of course, and Seals at the other guard spot. The brother of Joe Brown, Michael Brown, has overtaken the backup job at the other guard spot, as well as Chase Barrett working as the backup at right tackle and Kelby Wickline the backup at left tackle. On the defense, maybe surprising to some, but not surprising to me, because I've heard about how these guys have performed, and the coaches have been really impressed with them, and I think they're going to have big years. Both of the grad transfers, being Kenny Bigelow from USC, he earned the start at nose tackle, and Jabril Robinson from Clemson earned the start at one of the defensive end spots, leaving Ezekiel Rose and Reese Donahue to battle it out for the other defensive end spot, where they're both currently listed as co-starters. The linebacker spot for the Mountaineers remains mainly the same. The one thing that did surprise some people was freshman Josh Chandler earning a spot on the 2 deep as a backup at one of the outside linebacker spots. So that's good to see, and he's obviously probably flashing some good potential then. At corner, you have Hakeem Bailey entrenched as one of the starters, with Derek Pitts and Josh Norwood still battling out to get the start at that other corner spot, as they're listed as co-starters there. And we reported previously that Tony Gibson has said that he feels like he has 3 starters in all 3 of those guys, and he doesn't know which 2 are going to be on the field first, but they're all 3 going to play a lot, so that's good to see. As far as the safeties are concerned, starters remain the same. One thing that kind of surprised some people and surprised me is that at Spur, I figured Quantel Raines would be listed second team there, but Diamante Lindsay is actually listed second teamer there, so it appears Quantel Raines, they may be looking to redshirt, but I do still expect him to play some this season, with being able to play in up to 4 games and still be redshirted. Special teams wise, went pretty much the way we predicted, except Evan Staley will be handling field goals and kickoffs actually. Billy Kinney punting, and backing him up at punter is Evan Staley actually, so Evan Staley's really performed well in this camp and has impressed the coaches a lot at a lot of different places. So that's just some of the changes that we've seen in WVU's game week depth chart, and wanted to discuss that briefly. And some people have found some of those surprising, and just some little tidbits there on what you may see game 1 for West Virginia, and some of it still remains a mystery, much like Tennessee's depth chart left it as mystery as well. I mentioned earlier that it's kind of a mystery how this Tennessee team's going to look with new schemes on offense and new schemes on defense as well. But on offense, I expect them to try and run the ball and play ball control and try and keep this high-powered West Virginia offense off the field as much as possible. How well that works remains to be seen. Like I said, the Tennessee offensive line struggled a lot last season, so we'll see if the rebuilt Tennessee offensive line can allow them to do that, as well as West Virginia's defensive line struggled a lot last season, mainly against the run, being one of the worst in the country against the run. But we'll see how West Virginia's also rebuilt defensive line holds up against that. So that's a good battle to watch, is the 2 rebuilt lines, being Tennessee's offensive line and West Virginia's defensive line, going at it. And because I expect Tennessee to take advantage of what they expect to be a poor West Virginia run defense and try and run the ball a lot, as well as try and control the game and control the clock. And like I said, keep that West Virginia offense off the field as much as possible. So we'll see what happens there, but I do think that the coaches have probably been preparing for that as well. And, you know, if West Virginia can stop them early when they try and run the ball and force them into some obvious passing downs, that can benefit West Virginia a lot. And I expect this West Virginia team to be much improved against the run, but I also expect the Tennessee offensive line to probably perform better than they did last year. So it'll be a good matchup to see how it works when Tennessee comes out trying to run the ball, and it'll be a good test for this new West Virginia defensive line to see how they hold up against it early in game 1. And what Tennessee's going to do on defense is a little bit more of a mystery and hard to say. Like I said, they are switching to the 3-4, but how much they're going to be lined up in that 3-4 is hard to say. With with the way West Virginia is probably expected to pass the ball and spread them out a little bit, you're probably going to see them going to come out in nickel package and dime packages probably a lot on defense. And as well as last season at Alabama, Jeremy Pruitt liked to play his corners up in press coverage, man them up, and just rely on the strength of the other players throughout his defense. And I don't think he's going to do that really at Tennessee, especially with, replacing having to replace 3 new corners, and possibly having true freshmen out there at one of the corner spots as well. And so I don't expect him to do that. And I think if he does do that and press those corners up, Will Greer's eyes are going to light up, and I'm sure Will Greer would love to see that with the offense that West Virginia has and the talent at receiver and quarterback. As far as how WVU plans to attack Tennessee, offensively, I'm hoping they try and establish the run first. A lot of people last year felt like West Virginia got away from the run game too much, and some people said they even feel like they only ran it because they felt like, well, we haven't ran a run play in quite a while, let's run one. And some people said that a lot of that's on Will Greer because he checked out of a lot of plays, but he goes what he sees based off of the defense. And this offense gives the quarterback a lot of freedom that West Virginia runs. But I think that he's going to be more experienced in his second year. He's going to trust his running backs more, probably trust his offensive line more now. And we've been hearing a lot about how the run blocking's improved. So I'd like to see us come out and establish the run first. And then I think that could set up for some big plays later on in the game through play action passes, especially with the type of talent that West Virginia has. And I think that we have enough good running backs to be able to run the ball this year, and I think the offensive line's run blocking should be improved as well. So I'm hoping to see West Virginia come out and establish the run early, to set up play action later in the game, and also I'm hoping to see West Virginia, score right away the first time they get the ball. Make a statement and let everybody know that this offense is for real and that they can live up to the hype. And so that's what I'd like to see from the offense. Defensive-wise, I said priority number 1 will definitely be stopping the run and forcing Tennessee to get into some obvious passing downs and obvious passing situations where Tony Gibson can, in his trademark style that he's employed here at West Virginia, attack them with a lot of different blitzes from a lot of different angles in those obvious passing situations and really get after these 2 quarterbacks, whichever one it may be, Guarantano or Christ, and probably confuse them with a defense they haven't seen maybe ever. And I think that could help West Virginia to their benefit for sure, stopping the run, because like I said, Tennessee's going to try and play ball control and run the ball a lot and keep this West Virginia offense off the field, because that's upset 101 is, grind it out, play ball control, keep the score close, and hopefully squeak out a win late. But it also, I think, could be to Tennessee's detriment if they come out and try and run the ball and work the clock, and they go 3 and out real quick, give West Virginia's offense the ball fast, and West Virginia scores and gets out early, gets up 14 or something like that, and then Tennessee's forced into passing the ball, which is not what they're looking to do with this pro-style attack. I feel like their main goal and main strength is going to be running the football. So if West Virginia can stop the run, it can really help. Of course, help their defense's confidence, but also help the offense as well and help the whole team in general by forcing Tennessee then to turn into more of a passing team than I think they'd like to be. Then again, though, this is all just speculation on what I think is going to happen and what a lot of people are expecting from Tennessee. And maybe that's what Tennessee wants, is everyone to think they're going to come out running the ball and they're going to come out slinging that thing around. That's the crazy thing about first games, especially when there's a lot of unknowns with a whole new coaching staff like Tennessee has and changing schemes like they are. And that's why in a lot of these week 1 games, especially in these neutral site contests like this one is, the first quarter, 2 quarters is a filling out process, and then you see things open up a lot for both teams. In the second half, you've seen that last year with the West Virginia and Virginia Tech opening neutral site game. I think it was something like 10-7 at the half or something, and then the final score ended up being 31-24. So mostly all of the scoring took place in the second half, and the second half was really entertaining. And I wouldn't be surprised to see a game like that again. Maybe a touchdown game going into halftime, not a lot of scoring, and then second half it may open up. We'll see how it goes. I'm excited to see how this West Virginia defense looks. They've been getting a lot of criticism throughout the offseason from a lot of different places, and I think that this defense has the potential to really surprise some people, especially on this defensive line. This is one of the deeper defensive lines West Virginia has had ever, really. And then, of course, we all know about the offense. You got the Heisman candidate in Will Greer. Everybody's excited to see what he looks like in year 2 and what he looks like with more weapons, more receivers that he trusts. Supposed to be employing the tight end now, so that'll be another weapon. And then supposed to be a great stable of backs. The offensive line was great in pass protection last year. if they can improve in run blocking and we can establish the run like West Virginia did in 2016 when they won 10 games, I don't see how this offense is stopped. And if the defense is improved like I think it will be, it could be a really great season for West Virginia. And on the Tennessee side, a lot of the same goes for them. You know, it's unknowns, but their offensive line didn't perform well last season. But if their offensive line performs better, especially with the offense they're trying to run, I think they can improve their win total. You know, maybe even get to a bowl game this season. Jeremy Pruitt's a defensive-minded guy, so I expect him to have a good defense there. And if the offense can, play good as well, then they may have a better season than people expect. With all that being said, let's talk about my prediction for the final score of this game and what I think is going to happen. As far as predictions go, I've heard a lot of different things about this game. I've heard people thinking West Virginia is going to blow them out. I've heard people thinking it's going to be a closer game than a lot of people expect. I expect it to be, like I said, close early probably, but I think by halftime, West Virginia is going to start to pull away a little bit. And I think a big part of that's going to be this West Virginia defense. Like I said, I think it's going to be much improved. And I think Tennessee is going to struggle to score, especially running the football, because I think this West Virginia team has been focused on stopping the run a lot, because that's where they struggled last season for one, but also that's what they expect Tennessee to do. And I think if they force them into passing downs, West Virginia's going to be able to get after the quarterback and make them make some mistakes and maybe force some turnovers. And then on the offensive side of things, I think that West Virginia has potential to really, light the scoreboard up in this one and put up a lot of yards. But the one thing holding them back from putting up a lot of points, I think, will be the fact that Tennessee is going to try and play ball control offense. So West Virginia may not get that many chances offensively. I think when they do get chances, they're probably going to score a lot of the time, especially with Tennessee having to replace 3 corners against the passing weapons and the passing offense that West Virginia has and the talent they have there. That's not a very good matchup for Tennessee. And I think that West Virginia will excel there, and I think the running game will impress some people a lot this game. And I think towards the end you'll see West Virginia run the ball to run the clock out and get a win. That being said, my score prediction for this game is going to be West Virginia 38 and Tennessee 17. Like I said, 38 may seem low to some people, as with Will Grier in the lineup last season, West Virginia averaged 39 or 40 points, I believe it was. But like I said, I think that they're going to get 38. Just because how Tennessee's going to control the clock and stuff. They're not going to get a chance to score too many points, but I think they'll be efficient and score a lot when they do have the ball. And I think that West Virginia's defense is going to stop Tennessee's offense and hold them to under 20 points in this game. So my final score prediction for this one is West Virginia 38, Tennessee 17. So this has been the Country Roads Webcast Week 1 preview. Previewing the Mountaineers' first game of the season. We are going to be going to 2 shows a week now. Early in the week we'll be recapping the game from Saturday, so expect a recap show probably on Mondays, and then our preview for the next week will probably come on Wednesday or Thursday. We're going to try and get uniform in that and maybe have it Monday, Thursday, or Monday, Wednesday, one of the two. Not quite sure yet, but it's going to be Monday and then one day later in the week to preview the next game. So you'll have a recap show at the beginning of the week and then preview show to listen to towards the end of the week as the game approaches. But I know I'm really excited to get this season underway and see what the Mountaineers are going to do in this first game, and it can't get here soon enough. All that being said, that'll wrap us up here on this episode of the Country Roads Webcast, brought to you by Trio 4 Productions. I'm your host, Jordan Cruz. Thank you for tuning in. If you haven't already, go to our Twitter page and give us a follow. It's at WVU Country Roads, as we will be providing previews and recaps for the WVU games throughout this football season, which is finally upon us. I'm excited, and I'm sure everyone else is too. Can't wait to see what the Mountaineers are going to do against the Volunteers on Saturday. But thank you for tuning in, and I hope you continue to do so as the season progresses. From the Country Roads Webcast, let's go, Mountaineers.
Are you ready to party? Country Roads.